Emotionally unavailable.
Welcome to Emotionally Unavailable, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of emotional availability and intimacy. I'm your host, Melissa Hepner, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have you join me on this journey of self-discovery and connection. Whether you're navigating the complexities of relationships or exploring your own emotional landscape, this podcast is here to inspire, empower, and entertain. So get cozy and let's explore the depths of human emotions together. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Today's guest is my new friend, Catherine. I think her last name is pronounced Cristani, but I never asked because I'm a dick. Anyway, Catherine's great. We had such a beautiful conversation. Re-listening to it was really touching for me. Before I forget to say this is definitely an episode of like, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, or like Sabrina Lynn says, if something we say just doesn't land, just chuck it in the bucket. Anyway, Catherine has worked in allied health before transitioning into a career as an intuitive healer and leadership coach. She has run and sold successful companies, mentored students and others in her profession, as well as guided and healed many souls globally. Catherine hosts a podcast called Willow Healing Matters and interviews guests from around the world about their healing journeys. I was on that show, and we had a good time. This title is also shared for her Substack, where articles are shared each week to inspire others and empower them on their life journey. Catherine's interest in writing resurfaced as a way to share information she has collected and reflect on her intricacies that make life extraordinary. Her new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice Light Workers, Healers, Psychics, Mediums, Shamans, Energy Workers, and all souls called to shine their lights, dives deep into the topic of operating a spiritual business, which means mama gonna be buying that shit. The idea for Catherine's novels and books come through to her through her intuition. Catherine is unaware on what will come until the book is being written and the manuscript unfolds. This has led to her writing from a unique perspective that is beyond her imagination and keeps her guessing as much as those she is writing for. With unique storylines and spiritual topics that will capture an audience, Catherine is excited to share her spirit writer with the world. I will include links to, her website, her podcast, her Instagram, her YouTube, and her Substack. At her website, you can download her app or listeners are able to go to our website where they can download our app or use their browser to search. We have free gifts, meditations, courses, a podcast shop, as well as our coaching packages. You can find news around upcoming events and links to join Instagram and Substack. Okay, perfect. So then I'll just include this link to her website, and then that will get you all the other links. I'm going to fucking go to this website too because I want her free gifts and meditations, okay? Okay, well, I guess that's it for the intro. Little PSA. Sorry about the ads. I know they're annoying, but mama needs the money. What else? Okay, I think that's it. I love you guys. Again, just take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Expand our container for hearing information that's new to us. And if you can just sit with it, maybe one day it'll make sense and maybe it won't. But there is always something to take away from stuff. Okay, I think I'm going to quit rambling. But I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. And I hope that you have a marvelous, magical Monday. Here's me and Catherine.
Emotionally unavailable.
Whether you're into just mascara and gloss or love playing with bold colors, we all have that one makeup essential. Mine? Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara. It gives the look of lash extensions without the glue or damage. The flake-free tubing formula defines from root to tip, no clumps or flakes, and comes off with warm water. It's vegan, cruelty-free, and gives back with every purchase. Beauty that works and makes a difference. Try your new trusty favorites with an exclusive set for our listeners. New customers can get the Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara and the mini-sized Brilliant Eye Brightener at a special set price with free shipping available at thrivecosmetics.com/beauty. Or save more with 20% off your first order at thrivecosmetics.com/beauty. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/beauty for 20% off your first order.
Well, that was an
Hello.
adventure.
Yeah. Was it hard to get back in?
Yeah.
Well, good. Isn't that great? Good. Love that for you. Sorry you're having to record at 1 a.m., man. I didn't see your other messages until
That's
I
why I
woke
was
up
like,
this morning. I was
that's
like,
why I was
cool
like,
dick that you offer this and then you go to sleep before you get it finalized, rude ass. Sorry.
you know what? It's okay because my week is just mental this week. So and it was so funny because I knew I had to wake up and I woke up at 11:15 and I was like, no, I still have another hour and a half sleep. Go back.
You're like, what the hell? I don't want to be awake right now. So I was looking at your pod match profile so I'd have an idea of where to start. First of all, okay, when has your new book released yet?
Yeah, it came out last Saturday, just gone. Yeah.
Holy hell, how exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure you like if you post on Instagram and stuff, like make me a collaborator on your post.
Okay, I will.
That's awesome. Okay, so you are a leadership coach, intuitive healer, podcaster, author, and international speaker. You empower mothers to find their voice in business, family, health, starting with self-leadership. So, okay, you call your journey a reawakening. So you had some spirituality prior. Were you like deep into the spirituality, or were you more like I felt intuitive, or like I knew I had some gifts?
Yeah, I was always really intuitive. I always followed my gut, but it was only when I started doing the work that I realized that I kind of shut it all off. By 5, I'd shut it all off. By 3, it was starting to shut off. But I think we're all born awake. We just get shut down because of life, really, you know. And because if you meet kids under 7, they don't question anything. It's wonderful.
No, it's so true. And that's, I think, why the phrase is so profound to me about coming home to yourself or remembering who you were before they told you who to be, you know, those types of sayings. They really mean a lot to me because, I mean, I think it perfectly describes how I felt when I finally started to expand my consciousness, because that's a different part of this spirituality than knowing we have gifts, you know. Like when I was a kid too, I would do that too, where like I'd be like, well, I was just talking to a client about this yesterday, and maybe you can answer this because I haven't done like a lot of looking into it, but we were talking about what the deal is with deja vu, and she and I both had tons as children, like tons and tons and tons.
It's you catch up to your timeline. It's like you've already been there, you've already done that, and you're just kind of catching up. Or it's a past life memory. So like I was driving a car, my car up a hill, and I went to change gears, and this really slow person was in front of me. So I went to change gears and go overtake it and knew that it was safe to overtake. However, I have never driven a manual, but I knew I was like going to push
exactly
the clutch.
how to do it.
Yeah. And I was going to push the clutch and pop the gear in. And I was just like, what is this? You know, so, or I'll be in the kitchen. I remember I had a friend over and I'm like, she was talking to me. I said, we've already had this conversation. She's like, no, we haven't. I said, yeah, we haven't, but we have, you know, like I just knew straight away. So, that's like catching up in your own timeline, because we get taught time is linear, but it's actually like a figure 8, but it's like multidimensional. So it's like, so when you're closest to another bit of time, you can sometimes see your timelines across, and sometimes it glitches and sometimes it stays up. But it is kind of like the Matrix where they change things. That can happen too. So
yeah, well, I remember, I mean, this has happened a couple times, like in the recent past, where I'll be like, oh, I've been here before, but I'm like, we get into an argument, so I'm going to chill the fuck out. Like, because and I'll have such a clear memory of the argument in this scenario. So I'm like, I'm on my best behavior because it's always me that starts the shit. I'm not gonna lie about it. So it's always like, how can I enter this space a little more calmly? But yeah, I still think like, I mean, I can think back to so many incidences as a child, but that's like one part of this knowing versus when you start to expand your consciousness and understand what your role on this earth actually is.
Yeah, because then there's also claircognizance. So that's the gift of just knowing, right? So I remember the clearest example of that was I got in the car after school and my sister's like, "You'll never guess what happened to Gru today." That was a friend. I said, "Oh, she fell off a horse and broke her arm." And she goes, "Did you see her? That's exactly what happened." And I went, "Oh, okay. No, I didn't see her." And my sister's like, "You did." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." And my mum was kind of like, huh, you know, turns, turns out my mum knew more about our family than she told us. But yeah, but things like that, like even when I was in labor with my son, and I hadn't told anybody because I went in because the doctor scared me to be induced, but that's a whole other thing. But anyway, so I was in labor, like actually getting ready, like contractions and everything, and both my nan and my mum were blowing up my phone, and they never call. You know, they just were like, "Oh,
Yeah.
we just knew, we just knew," you know, and for me, once I unpacked my gifts, this is why I'm such a good person at interviewing people because I understand everybody. Like I can talk to a doctor, I can talk to someone who's like into food. It doesn't matter. I can just, and I know it's a gift and I am very grateful. And it is one of my main gifts, you know, that I can talk to anybody at any level. It doesn't matter. And if I don't have the information, if I'm meant to know, I just get a download like that, you know, and it's just like I was talking to a friend about her husband was going through gene therapy and she was trying to explain it to me and I was like boop and I was like, "Oh, blah 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 blah, blah." She's like, "How do you know that?" And I'm like
Ah,
and she's like,
I just
"Yes."
know,
Yeah.
if
So
you
I
got it, you
sometimes
got it.
yeah, so sometimes I feel like on the Matrix, you know, where they just upload the program, that's what it feels like. It's just like, "Oh, I just got it, you know, thank you." So or I'll just look at somebody and go, "Yeah, no."
I've been trying to understand the phrase hopping timelines a little better just because well, this is the only way I've seen it happen for me that I could pinpoint is like, okay, yeah, I told you like I'm super into astrology. And so when the current transits are happening and they're like, this is what you're meant to get out of that, I'm like, oh, I just went through that 3 months ago. And then this transit that's supposed to be super harsh will be pretty like actually the opposite for me, very beneficial, very like supportive. And I'm like, is this hopping time? Is that what that like? Because I already went through this. Like what? Like because that's the only thing I can like actually pinpoint for
They're
me.
saying they're saying yes and no. Sometimes astrology can be out a little bit because they played with it so much. The church tried to taint it quite a lot and confuse the timelines with it. But for me, when I feel like I'm getting into a new timeline, I actually feel like I'm getting sucked into the ground and moved to the left. Like that's actually the physical feeling. It's really weird. My friend in the States, actually, Sabrina, she and I talk about this all the time. Weird shit happens. So like I was like every day I drive to work and there's a set of lights that stopped just before it was the last set of lights before I had to like in the last, you know, bit of work to get to work. And there was a tree there, like behind the lights. And I used to stare at the tree because I love trees. And I'm sitting there staring at the tree every day. And then so I was like, oh, I think there's been a timeline shift. And then the tree was fucking gone, Melissa. Completely gone. Like not even looked like it being removed. Like completely old concrete on the thing. And I'm like, no, I know there was a tree there. I know there was a tree there. You know, another one is Tinkerbell. She was used to ding the Disney castle after they at the start. She's not there anymore. We even put on my son's really old DVDs that he had. She's not there anymore. And even he said, "Mum, where'd Tinkerbell go?" And I said, That's a good question. And it's called the Mandela effect. Like I actually remember Mandela dying in prison when he was young, when I was younger. I remember that. He
Wow.
apparently he didn't.
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 39.
Okay,
Nearly.
I'm
Nearly.
45, and
Mm.
this is the first time I'm talking about this because I've never heard of anyone talk about, but me too. And
Mhm.
then one day it was like Nelson Mandela was being released from prison, and I was like, but he died.
Thank you. Yeah, so they're called the Mandela effect, and they do it all the time. So if you will, the darker energy people, let's call them that, they like to try and fuck up the timelines because they want to win, right? But no matter what they do, they can't adjust it so that they win, because it's about vibrate. They can't predict how many people will wake up. They can't predict how many people will raise their energy. They can't predict any of that, and they actually have no powers themselves, really, because they have to turn to like using people like as for their will, or using rituals that don't serve anybody, so it's just it's interesting, and they keep trying to, and as light workers you get sucked in your sleep, and you're actually fighting subconscious battles too. So there's even stuff happening on a subconscious level. So even for me, when my gifts really start to turn on, oh, we have this creepy thing. I feel I can share it with you. So my spiritual mentor was over, and then another friend of ours who also worked with her, and like we were very let's just say it's like having three powerful priestesses together. That's our energy together, right? And I was like, oh, I've got to take you to show this tree. And we start walking over there. And I always know the way intuitively. And I'm like, why am I lost? I'm like, I feel something's weird. And even my spiritual mentor, Carly, she's like, yeah, something's not right. And we're like, we're being watched. That's all we could feel. Like the lens, like triggering this because we're being watched. And we finally got there. And our friend was sitting there, and she was connecting with the tree because my spiritual mentor already had. And we're looking at each other. I said, there's something not right. And then we were walking back, and we could feel this person walking us. And she goes, it's a man. This is my other friend. She's like, there's a man watching us. I said, yeah, I can feel it. It's really icky. Like, it's like, but it wasn't a man. It was this, we were being spied on, like remote viewed, and psychically kind of being spied on. So I had to learn how to put up all these shields around my house and make it kind of like a mirror. And then I went and spoke, because I'm not one to run away from this shit, right? So I went and spoke to this person. I'm like, you're not meant to be here. He goes, I know, but you can't do anything about it. I'm like, actually, I can, and, so then I put like a border around. And then a few times in my dreams, I've been sucked into places I shouldn't be, because I can remote view, but I don't turn it on, because when I figured that out, I was actually doing that. I had no idea. I was like, I just said to my spiritual mentor, I was like, oh yeah, when I think about my friends at work, like my staff at work, sometimes I can actually see them and see what they're doing. And I just see them on Facebook or Instagram, and they're not actually doing anything, and she's like, and are you like in the room? I said, yeah, like I can see it really clearly. She's like, that's remote viewing. And I was like, oh, what?
Ew.
Yeah. Anyway, and then somehow I ended up in like Bill Gates' office. I've ended up in there, and I'm like, nah, get me out. I don't want to be in this man's office. I've been in and then I've been pulled to these different this island, and there was a lot of symbology, and then I kept getting shown maps, and then I woke up and I was like, I'm going to Google that, and then it was all attached to the World Economic Forum's plan and all this stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, I don't like. So then you have to put boundaries in your sleep. It's just like,
Yeah. Okay, I have a serious question to ask you about this conversation, though. Is there a time, because I'm viewing this from two different lenses, the lens of like somebody new to this and like open and whatever, and then the people who listen to us and are like, the fuck are you talking about? Was there ever a time that you would have like listened to a conversation like this and been like, they're a little wacky?
No, it's so weird.
You've
Hey, like,
always been so attuned.
I have, because I could just kind of, I could see they beneath people's masks kind of to a point. But that kind of came through. I guess I was blessed with that going through Yeah, going through my business partner divorce, and I could start to see because so she would kind of, if I would bring up a problem with her, she would buy me a gift and then I would forget about it. Right? She kind of gaslit me all the time. And I didn't realize that was the pattern. And then when I started seeing my husband, he's like, hey, every time you bring up stuff with her, she buys you a gift. And I'm like, no, does she?
Oh God.
And then we were at a wedding, for one of our staff, and I went to bring up all these problems, and then she brought me a gift, and then I kind of forgot about it. And my husband's like, "Oh, how did it go? Having this talk with her?" And I said, "Oh, look, she bought me." I'm like, "Oh my God, she did it again." He goes, "Yes, she did." And then when that wasn't working anymore, then it got really nasty, So, and then I started to learn how to see beneath people's masks, but it kind of just all evolves. And I've never thought it was wacky. Like, I wanted to be Pocahontas when I was little. Like, I was so adamant I wanted to be like
Yeah.
Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Like, people say, what Disney princess? I'm like, she's not even a princess, but Pocahontas for sure, They say she's a princess, but she wasn't a princess. It's just
She's badass.
exactly. So, it's I always say, and I always teach people, and I even talk about this in my book, use your own discernment. Like, let what lands, whatever needs to go, go.
Exactly.
And for some people, I was at this talk and he was talking about the zones of awakening. He's like, if you're meeting somebody who's just realized that maybe the medical system isn't looking after them, you're not going to have a talk to them about galactic beings on the other end, or, if you meet somebody who, what's another example he used? He's just noticed the clouds aren't really clouds, then you're not going to talk to them about other things. So it's like, you talk to
Just
them
kind
at
of know
whatever
who your
level.
audience is and where they are.
Yeah, and you talk to them at what level of credibility that they will take you for too,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I'm just thinking of like my one friend Lori, who it's so funny. She just gave me feedback on an episode last night. And hi Lori, I would call her a very dual thinker. It's either this or like a polarizing, like very
there's
staunchly
no
this or
gray.
staunchly that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is an area she's really working on in life, is to be more expansive in that. So like, I don't mean it negatively. It's just, she's really concrete, and she was like, that lady was a little weird. And it was, I mean, I don't think the person was weird per se, but like, I definitely saw how she thought. We got deep into it. There's been a couple of it, like deep. And I know it's not shit that a lot of my audience base understands, believes in, you know what I mean? But I have the conversations and I let them go where they go, and then I post them, but like, I'm just laughing because I know this is going to be another one where she's like, but what I said to her was, totally understand. This is just another example of like, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And I have had to do that because whenever the very first time I visited a medium, I finally like worked up the nerve. Like, I finally believed it wasn't demonic and that I was not going to let in, evil spirits and all the things I had been afraid of for my whole life because of my family. My parents had been gone for so long, and I needed to know if they were proud of me. Like, I needed to try to feel some sort of connection with them. And it was such a fucking life altering connection, like really that started some shit for me. And it was so amazing. And he was the first person to tell me about the concept that like we chose this experience, and I was triggered as fuck. I mean, first of all, I hadn't even gone through my healing or spiritual awakening, so I was so fucking triggered, but I was also willing to sit with that. And I'm not good at that. Like, that's not an area I wasn't even used to experiencing feelings. So like, I knew it triggered the shit out of me, and yet I was willing to like hold it and just be like, I don't like that, but I'm also really open to it. And the more, like, the deeper I got into astrology and starting to see it as a blueprint, then I was like, this makes perfect sense, especially whenever like I think about my children too, because you can see the ties in through our, and I'm like, okay, this does make sense actually. And like I was raised by a Gemini. I'm a Gemini. I've got this Gemini daughter. Like there's some history here, And so
Yeah,
it just
yeah,
makes so much more sense to me now. But I mean, I remember being triggered as shit by it.
yeah. And I guess that's where it comes down to, like, and I've just like, if it triggers you, run towards it, because there's two reasons why it triggers you. It's triggering you because it's encroaching on your standards and who you are, or it's triggering you because you actually need to heal it, and it's just like,
Mhm.
all right. And that's where compassionate inquiry comes in. This is where you go, all right, what is this teaching me and what does it mean? And this is where you learn not to react,
Yeah.
Melissa, right? And you actually learn the sacred pause, and instead of reacting. And it's funny because, my husband will say something and I'm like, I'm not even going to entertain that, and he's like, oh, did you hear me? And I'm like, I heard you.
Show did, honey. Show did. You know what? In one ear and out the other is where that went. No, totally. I mean, I'm getting much better through the advice that I give to others. I'm now more cognizant of this. Where like even this morning, my husband seemed a little tense and a little edgy, but he's so calm and quiet. It's like not like he's yelling or anything for me to feel that from him. It's just his speech patterns and whatever. Usually I would not usually, but in the past I would have been like, what the fuck is your problem? That's whatever it can't possibly have shit to do with me. I have not even spoken to him this morning. So like, this is our first interaction of the day. So I know that whatever he's going through doesn't have shit to do with me, but I sure the hell would have made it about me, a couple years ago. Whereas now I was like, are you okay? Do you need something? What's wrong with you? What's going on? But like, that's a perfect example of different levels of understanding and
Yeah,
just
and who
like
you are.
being chill,
Yeah, exactly. And it's who you are in the end. So it's just like, as your identity shifts, you're like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And just really
Mhm.
shifting with that. So it's just, yeah. And it's funny because you start to catch yourself. And it's like, wow, that's so interesting.
Yes. No, it's so true. Because when you start to become more of an observer of your world, of other
Mhm.
people's worlds, of your behavior, of other people's behaviors, instead of like not, always being front and center of things, and you kind of just watch, wow, everything changes because you start to understand, wow, we really are just kind of driving ourselves crazy, aren't we? Like that's what we're doing. I mean, I know I told you when I was on your show the other day, like I mean, this is something I've been preaching a lot when I'm talking, because I did not understand the level of victimization happening that I was creating for myself. I mean, just every fucking experience was me becoming a victim to something because I did not know how to step outside of myself and understand I'm just viewing this a certain way. And so it is my perception that has created this reality. But man, if you had told me that then, I'd have been like, and you're a bitch. Okay,
No,
because it's not
yeah.
my fault.
Exactly. And this is where, like, the universe kind of meets where you're at as well. It's not going to throw things in your lap. And this is kind of why I wrote my book too, because you can't give people information that's 20 steps ahead of where they're at, because it's going to freak them out. 10 steps,
Right.
yes, because you always lead people 10 steps ahead, like behind you. But, if you give them too much too quickly, then they freak out. If I would have been told, hey, you can do all these things in the quantum realm and do all this magic and blah blah blah, I would have been like, yeah, okay. Whereas all the remote viewing and stuff, the CIA use it. They had a whole program about it. Like, it's just like you can actually learn it. So that would have been like, okay, that sits with me. Other people do that too. But when it's things,
Right.
and for me, for so long I wrestled with the doubt, and then now I'm at the point where I can hold a space when I'm working with someone, and new stuff comes through all the time, because I just trust it. I'm like, I double check it, and I'm like, can I really do that? They're like, yeah, you can. I'm like, now it's not severing any soul contracts or lessons here. And they're like, no, you can really do that. And then and then I'm like, all right, cool. I'll hold space and I'll do that for them. Or I'll do that with them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I mean, I think with any information, it's easier to accept some things than others. The lower level part of the information is easier to comprehend. I think for me, anything in the beginning, anything that could be backed by science was easy for me to take in. Like, if that's the easiest way for me to put it. But when people are like, no, this is just quantum physics, look at it, like, me didn't know shit about shit. So I was like, oh, okay. Did I ever look it up? Hell no. But I did believe them. I was like, oh, okay. You say it's somewhere. Astrology was easy for me just because I've heard about astrology my whole life. And it all worked. Like, it all fit. Like, everything I learned was like, that makes so much fucking sense now. But I've also adapted human design. I'm willing to take in any information that's going to help me. Really, I just need to constantly stay in a state of observation of myself, because I'm a person who can get really just in the thick of something. And then it isn't until I'm able to reflect on a situation that I'm like, maybe you made that so much harder for yourself than you needed to. You just didn't even need to make it that hard. For you, how are you using, I know that you're an intuitive healer, but like, what does that look like in your business? What are you doing with this?
Basically I have no idea what I'm doing with the client till I'm actually in the space. That's the nature of it. So it's like, okay, they'll just be talking, and then I'll just start to get downloads, and I'll start to get information come through, and I'll be like, all right, you need to go rest now. And they're like, okay. Or sometimes I'll do the work with them, or sometimes I've witnessed so much crazy stuff. But like, I had a 12-year-old the other week, and I said, what's going on? Where's the pain in your body? And normally I can feel it, so I had an idea. And he's like, my leg. He goes, it's just so bad. I'm like, all right, what color do you think of? And so I use color, because that's what he resonated with. But this 12-year-old, my gosh, the energy this kid has already, and how he's like moves his hands, and it was like light language. And I said to his mom, does he do that all the time? She's like, yeah. I said, that's light language code, like when you like move your hands a certain way, because I do it and I don't even think about it, and so it's always perfect for them. And he's like, oh my gosh, there's no more pain in my leg by the time we're finished. And his mom's like, he's had that pain in his leg since he was 2. And we actually figured out the exact moment it happened. I said, all right, your 2-year-old self, something happened. What happened? How did you hurt yourself at 2? And he goes, I don't know. I saw a red ball. I said, it's not a red ball. And he's like, oh, it's a metal bar. And his mum knew exactly what had happened. He'd actually slipped in the shower and hit a metal bar. And from that point, he had issues with his hips and drop foot and all this stuff and everything. And then in that one session, because he went back and helped that little 2-year-old, be okay again, his leg pain disappeared for the first time in 10 years. So this is what I mean by intuitive healer, because I never know what's going to come through. So I'll do anything from ancestral work, removing entities, inner child work, theta healing, energy healing, calling in plants, calling in animals, calling in angels, whatever. So I have no idea what it will be like. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, man, what a fun way to make a career.
Yeah, it's funny because
does it take a lot of energy out of you?
No. So it used to. So it used to, and especially when I was playing with medical intuition, that really drained me, because I used to take on other people's pain, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. But this is like trusting yourself and letting it, using your discernment, because as it moves through and as you allow it to play out, that's where the magic kind of starts to happen, and you learn. So, and it's better at holding the frequencies, and you get better at holding the energy. So it's like when you meditate, it gets easier the more you do it, because you're so used to holding that space for yourself. And even when you're connecting with different levels of energy, it gets easier to do the more you do it. So like I find it really easy to go connect to kind of my highest. Actually, no, I actually go up to God to command theta healing. So I will just go straight up to God and be in God's presence all the time. And I can connect like that these days because I've practiced it so much. And it's funny because when you're learning it, you go through the process and whatever people teach you. And then all of a sudden, one day you don't have to do that. You just close your eyes and you're there. And you're like,
Right.
oh, all right, cool.
It's kind of like how we were talking about learning tarot, like how you just
Yes.
decide, like, I'm gonna try this or I'm gonna try that, and then you just do what works, or like finding natural gifts.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah, so it all kind of just evolves, and then it's just about just seeing how it plays out. And it's funny because I said to the universe, what clients am I meant to be working with? And that week I had all these new intuitive clients. I'm like, okay, thank you. I know who I'm meant to be working with now. Awesome. And then I was talking about this leadership coach thing because my friend, I am doing coaching with her, but then the other week she was just like, I just don't think I need I said, you need a healing session. And she's like, yeah. And she left this healing session and she goes, this is what you're meant to be doing. She goes, you're a brilliant coach, but you're an even better healer. And I'm like, okay, so where does this leadership coach thing come back in? And then I was talking it out with her and I said, oh my gosh, I am leading people back to themselves so they can heal from within. Thank you. Got it. Awesome. That is where the leadership coach comes in.
I'm
Yeah.
really hoping to make those connections for myself soon. Like, because I still, even though I feel like the most driven right now, when I got real clarity, I was like, I am going to focus on monetizing my can you hear me?
Yeah. I was just seeing
Okay.
if this has a whiteboard, but it doesn't because I was going to show you a thing. But that's cool. I'll try and describe it to you.
But I was like, even I want to monetize my podcast and I want to
Same.
focus on the public speaking. Like that's where I was. So I got really clear on that. And here this felt like confirmation when I stopped being afraid to say that. And I talked to my husband about it. And I was like, I feel this constant sense of like I'm a burden, and like you think that I should go do anything I need to do to try to make money to help us, blah, blah, blah. He's like, not true at all. I'm here for the ride, like do what you feel, follow your heart. I'm here. So I was like, thank you. So I was like, okay, well, I think I've been really afraid since the beginning to just be honest and be like with myself and to say out loud, like, I want my podcast to be a big podcast and I want to be a big public speaker. That's where I want to make my income. And I want to keep these therapy clients that I have as the sacred relationships that they are. And I don't really want to take on new ones. I just don't. Like
Yeah,
it's hard to
for sure,
explain how much
well-being.
I love it, but how much I don't want to do more of it. You know what I mean? Like it's got its place in my heart, but I don't want to do more. And then when I got really clear and I said that out loud, then I got a thing from my podcast hosting thing that's like, guess what? You can apply now for this pilot program for ads, blah, 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 and make money for your podcast. And now I have ads on my podcast. I don't get to know how much I'm going to make from it until August, but that was one way. Like I got really clear. And then I forgot that I had signed up on this website to connect you to like public speaking gigs. And I got a request for a quote. Like this is all like within a couple of days of each other. And I was like, that feels good. And I also got to see how my nervous system reacts to shit like that, which it wasn't good. Like I caught it in real time to be able to start fixing that part too.
And if it's not scary, you're not on the right path, right? Because you have to be a bit scared. And it's funny because I'm in this, I think I've gone through 6 identity shifts since October, right? So keep this in mind. And I'm at this point in my journey, and my coach uses this thing called the oolong, like it's like a Buddhist philosophy, and he actually uses it to explain your part of the journey. And I said, he goes, whereabouts are you? And I'm like, I'm in the apathy, no idea what's going on stage. But then he's like, yeah, but like you're coming up to your birthday. You have to kind of go through this mini death before your birthday comes along. So even yesterday, I was just had no energy, and I'm just like, oh, I've got so much crap to do. And then we have someone coming to inspect our house tomorrow now, And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to clean the whole house, make it neat, and it's not too bad when it's the first time they come because, they come with their rose-colored glasses, but it's still at the same time I have to clean the house. And I said to my husband, okay, I'm going to have to start cleaning today because I've got stuff on, so I'm going to have to do it in between each thing. Because I'll help you when I get home. But currently when he gets home from work, it's just like Mr. Misery. And I'm like, I just, you know what? If you help me, you help me. If you don't, you don't. I'm at that point. I'm just like, whatever. I'm just going to start down the bottom of the house and work my way out. Like it's just.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to fit that in as well. Plus do this, and it's just, plus still be a mom. Plus, and on Monday, I had 3 meetings. I think, yeah, I had one in the morning. So I try and schedule my podcast really early, so that by the time my son wakes up, I'm already kind of free. Anyway, so I had one early, but he decided to wake up at 10 to 6. Not my fault. That was him. That's on him. And then I had another one that I host a group of entrepreneurs at 9. And then at 10:30 they have like a posting party. So I jumped back on because I was just baking anyway. But because I jumped back on, he had the shits. Even though I was in the kitchen baking, he could easily come talk to me. It didn't matter. But he was just like, and then by the afternoon, like he was super clingy on Monday. You have kids, you get it when they're like koala days. We call them koala days because they just cling you. And then by the afternoon, and he wanted me to do everything for him. It was like he became, like, and I get it. Like sometimes they just want to feel like they're loved and they're cared for, and I understand. But at the same time, I had no alone time that day, not a single ounce. And then I went down and I said to my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, some days I just wish you would do things because, it's so frustrating. You have to sit there and go put your clothes on, go do this, go do this, go do this. Anyway, and then he goes to me, he goes, I came back because we're going to play this like kids Monopoly. And I came back and then he's like gone outside. He comes back, he goes, you just don't want to be near me. And I'm like, what? Like it was such an extreme reaction. But he just felt my energy because at that point, yeah. And I said, look, you know how you like alone time and you go into your room, put your music on and you just want to be alone? He goes, yeah. I said, sometimes mummy needs that too. And it doesn't mean I don't love you and I don't want to be with you. I just need 5 minutes to my head for myself. And then yesterday was another day like that. And I was just like, this is testing my patience. And then my husband's like, you want to be a stay-at-home mom. This is part of what it's about. I said, I'm not complaining about it. It's just, I just want some space too, So
how old is he?
He's 8. So we homeschool as well. So yeah. And like lately,
summer break there?
Well, it's winter here. We're the opposite. But we also homeschool. So yeah, we don't get holidays.
I did not realize that.
Yeah. We're
You're
flipped.
in opposite seasons too. Shit. But it's like Wednesday there now, right?
It's 1:38 a.m.
Oh my God, you poor thing. You poor thing. What God, that's a lot. I could never homeschool. I'm not a good enough teacher. My poor kids. Me trying to teach them math, verbal abuse. That's all you're gonna get. Verbal abuse. What do you, in this moment, are you just super focused on the intuitive healing and promoting this book? Like, is that what you're doing right now? Do you have any thoughts of, like, do you feel comfortable, content right now?
Well, it's like the biggest thing I want to do is become a teacher of teachers and a healer of healers. So it's not content. It's almost like I'm not sure what my next step is. It's really interesting because you get to this point and, you try and follow what lights you up. And then my coach has been working with me and he's like, hey, does intuitive healing light you up? And I said, It doesn't, because I'm like, it's just like a hold space. And afterwards, when I hear about the results, well, that's cool, but I'm not there doing it for that reason. But at the same time, I know that I have all these gifts and that's part of how I can serve. But long term, I see myself like you, like speaking, but to the point that my words will carry a vibration that heal. And I can see that like long term. But at the same time, my focus is actually being a mom. And I know as he gets older, that my role in how that I show up and how much more I serve people will actually increase as he becomes less dependent on me. And through that relationship, that's where I can see it kind of shifting and moving forward. So it's really interesting where I'm at, because I'm at this point where I'm having another shift. So it's like, all right, what's next? What's next? So even like I've got put my book out, which is so exciting, but at the same time I'm like, all right, what's next? So now I'm organizing a book launch party for it. So I'm like, okay, great, I can do that. And then but at the same time, part of me is just tired and I'm just want to rest. And this is because we're
Yeah.
cyclical beings, right? So
Right.
it's always, where
Yeah.
are
If
you
you're
in
in
that
winter,
cycle?
it's time to rest. Yeah.
Exactly. But our society isn't designed that way. Our society is designed to, just go, 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 and see where that evolves from there, and how that is created essentially.
Yeah. God, that's so true. I remember hearing that this past winter, like there's a reason that your body is doing this to you. It wants you to rest. So I did. I just took things as they come. And I get really in my head because, like you, I've got people like telling me what lights you up, do the things that light you up. And I'm like, okay. But like my podcast lights me up, but that doesn't mean that every fucking task I have to do for the podcast lights me up in any given minute. Like overall, especially since I've been doing this for over a year now and I release 3 episodes a week, I've got a very good workflow. So like not too hard, but doing the work it takes, because I keep being pulled to, you got to get your shit together with the YouTube stuff, because I've just started uploading the video episodes of my show a few months ago, but it's very time intensive. Like I don't know. I feel like I have to come up with a better workflow for it, and then maybe it'll be better. But I keep being like, okay, that's where my time needs to be. And I do have the time, because my therapy clients, some have like stopped services altogether because they're out of college or whatever was stressing them, and then some are just on summer schedule and aren't scheduling really like often. And so I have the time and I keep being pulled to that. But like when I first learned to live in the feminine and be soft and just flow, that was great. I love that. But then you get this, but sometimes you gotta, well, I know, like I can get in my masculine and get some tasks done, but then also like I'd go play to get the energy to do the things I don't want to do. There's all these things, but I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to want to do every last task there ever is to do in any given moment. If I'm tired, like quit gaslighting me to think that I'm not lit up from like the loves of my life, which really are this podcast. And whenever I get the opportunity to speak to an audience, like those are the things that light me up to share this gift with the world. But that doesn't mean that emailing people or doing administrative tasks doesn't suck for me. It does, because actually that's where all the emotional work comes from. I have to overcome so much shit nonstop just to send an email. Oh my God. When I first joined Podmatch, it took me over a week to get the nerve to fucking ask someone else to be on their show. Like it was so hard for me. Well, because I was so afraid of being rejected. Then I got my first rejection and worked through the pain of that. And I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't pain. It was. I not do good at rejection, but I was just like, it doesn't matter. And I had to work through it. But like, I feel like a lot of the little tasks that I have to do to try to do the things that I'm wanting to do help me emotionally, help me spiritually,
Well, it's about mastering the Monday, really, because when you start to see that, but at the same time, you find ways to delegate tasks too. Like there's, I learned from writing my book that God, I hate editing so much. And I didn't realize how much I hated editing until I was actually doing the editing. And I hated it so much that I actually stopped writing for like weeks. And even like I've got this book out and I've written a novel as well, and I need to do some character development with it. And my husband's just like, have you gone back to the book? Have you gone back to the book? I'm like, no, actually, mentally, I'm not ready about that just yet. Right now, I'm focusing on this and this, because you can't pull your focus in multiple directions, and you're not meant to either. This is why it's so important to have support and have, focus and be able to allow that to happen, and this is what mastering the mundane is. You just find ways to get through those tasks and get them done. And usually I will do the procrastinative tasks first thing in the morning, because otherwise I'll just keep putting them off, and then you feel better because you've got it done. It's not playing in your head, and you can move on. And like you said, you get used to the rejections and you get used to getting told no. And it's like, make peace with the worst case scenario. You're going to pitch it to somebody. Worst case, they're going to say no to you. Right. Like that's the worst case scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't told anyone this except for my husband, but I haven't heard anything. I don't even know if they've read the message because I refuse to go look. But I'm a fan of Paige DeSorbo and Hannah Berner, like the Giggly Squad girls. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I found them on TikTok. Paige used to be on some reality show called Summer House, and Hannah Berner's a comedian. She's got a special on Netflix, but they have a podcast together, and it's called The Giggly Squad. And because I stopped consuming any like true crime media, there's a lot of things I stopped consuming because it wasn't good for me. So they're lighthearted and they're fun and whatever, but I can tell, like, they both talk openly about having a therapist and stuff, but I can tell they're open to stuff and I want to talk to them. So I sent them a message asking them to come on the show, but like a year ago, I wouldn't have had the balls to do that, So like I'm working on stuff like that, but honestly, receiving rejections has made it easier for me to say no to people too. Like because I used to not say no to anyone who asked to be on the show, anyone, because I put it out to the universe. If they're meant for me, send them to me. But like on Podmatch, not every single person feels like a fit, like they're just trying to get their shit promoted. So like I just rejected one yesterday, and I don't like the way I feel when I do it, but it's also like, I mean, this just isn't a fit. It's not you. I don't know you. I don't know anything about them. The content that you're wanting to talk about, that's not, if I were to just talk about any random thing, it wouldn't light me up. Like I like to talk about evolution, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is, and the way that we're going to impact this world. So like, if you're just a mindset coach, it doesn't always like fit. And it's not like, mindset wasn't really a good example, but this person messaged me like yesterday, and it was just like, well, I feel that you're into leadership, but it doesn't feel like there's any like emotional backing to that. Like if you're not teaching people how to be more emotionally intelligent in the workplace, that's just not really my vibe, like it just, what kind of conversation are we going to have? So, I mean, I am getting more selective, but not that. I mean, like mostly I'll say yes, but I mean, if you're going to ask and you're going to describe it in a way that doesn't feel like a fit, it's just not everyone's going to fit, and every time I send a rejection, it also helps me to receive them, because I'm like, I'm not thinking shit about this person. And in fact, I hate saying no, but it doesn't feel like a fit. So I figure they hate saying no to me too. They love me. They want so badly to make it work, but it's not a fit. It's not a fit.
Yeah. Well, I go on like vibes. So I'll have like people come up. And it was funny, my son was looking at them with me and he was like, no. And I was like, oh, I felt that too. Yep, pass. And or maybe later. I love the maybe later thing, because sometimes you might not be ready for them. Yeah. And sometimes you might not be ready for them. And then when they come up, why did you pass them? I was like, because I just did. So then I stopped trying to click the things. I'm like, no, I'm just going to hit because I passed on them. It's just, they didn't feel right for me. They didn't feel right at the same time, and then, like you said, the more you get used to getting told no. So something I do is I connect with strangers every day on Instagram. and I've met some really amazing people, but I've also been sale pitched by a lot of people because I've genuinely been curious about what they do. And then I get sale pitched. I'm like, well, I don't want you on my show because they don't know what I do. Like, you know, and I've been shut down, be like, I don't need coaching right now. Da, da, da. And it's like, well, I wasn't actually talking to you to talk about coaching. You know, maybe I actually genuinely wanted you to come on my podcast. And the first time that kind of happened, like they were like, oh, I don't need coaching or mentoring. Rah, rah, rah. I said, well, actually, I do all these other things. And they're like, and I could just feel the energy. And I was like, well, yeah, you did. You kind of shut that down really quickly rather than being curious and being open. And, you know, there's that Ted Lasso quote, which is be curious, not judgmental. And I'm like, yes, this is what we need to be. We need to be more curious, you know. And if I drop into someone's DMs and they can't even answer the question for me and send a link back, no, thank you. You know, if you're not passionate enough to share what you're doing and to put it out in the world, like, and actually just generally ask a question I have, then that doesn't feel resonant either. To me, that feels like you actually don't care enough to answer my question. So why would I want to work with you in any sort of way? And, you know, and I always see, like, I've had the most powerful conversations. And someone actually said to me, like, wow, this is the best conversation I've had in a long time. And we're strangers. I said, well, we're not anymore. You know?
Exactly. But that's what I love too, is like, you know, when you do go through so many identity shifts, it's been very isolating, like, because I don't know where I fit. And I don't like to say that because I don't mean it the way I used to mean it, because I really have felt that way my whole life, but it's from a different place now. Before it was very victimized, whereas now it's very from an empowered place, if that makes sense, even though it sounds kind of the opposite.
People.
Yeah. And so I don't spend a lot of time outside of my house, and I'm just making new friends. But like, that's why these connections mean so much to me, because I'm like, oh no, if I say we're friends, like, I mean that shit. I'm not just saying, you know. But I do feel so confirmed too, because I continue to meet people that, like, these conversations are everything to me. That's how I know, like, I'm meant to be doing this, because I can be having the worst day. Like, even my friend, I have another friend in Australia, and I was going on her show. And before we started recording, she's like, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm having the worst fucking day, blah, blah, blah. She's like, do you want to reschedule? I'm like, no, because I know, like, the second we start, this is going to change my entire day. Like, everything's going to be so good after this. And it was. That's how it always is. And even after therapy clients, like, even if I'm going through some really bad shit, most of the time I won't cancel on a client because I know I'm going to feel so much better afterwards. I had to one time because I had been crying hysterically from getting way too worked up over something, but I couldn't compose myself in time before the session. But I have had sessions like an hour after just crying my ass off, and then, you know, they can tell something's up, and then it's just like immediately I'm better, you know?
Yeah. And you show up 100% or whatever percentage you're at, you know, and that's about showing up, and it's about owning your commitments and owning your words. And the amount of people I've had not show up for the most bizarre reasons or no reason at all, they just don't even bother to let you know. To me, that just shows that they lack integrity, you know, that they're not actually keen to do things, you know. And I remember getting up for an interview where I was being interviewed, and it was like a really early morning one. I think it was 5 a.m. So I was up at 4:30, and then at 5 to 5, they sent an email and said, oh, actually, there's construction work here, so we need to cancel because we can't hear. And I'm like, but if you have good enough recording equipment, it doesn't matter. It'll just tune it out anyway, because it'll just capture the voice or whatever it might be. Right. But we didn't even try. It was just like, oh no, I'm just canceling it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not meant to have that interview. That's fine. And, you know, I just stayed up and did work, because by that point I'm wide awake. You're up.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and I believe that, you know, if it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen, and it will happen at the perfect timing. Mm-hmm. You know, I had this other guest, and he what happened? First of all, I had to reschedule him because somehow he booked in on my calendar in a time that I booked out because I was traveling. So there was no way I could have had it with him. And I said, look, you know, I'm actually traveling, you know, can you move maybe 2 hours earlier? He's like, no, I can't. And I said, that's fine. So we rescheduled. And then because of the Australia-America time glitch, we got the days confused. So I thought it was this day and he said it was this day. And then that didn't end up aligning. So I never like rescheduling people too, because it just does my head in, especially with the time zones,
Yes.
right? So if it's the same time the following week, I love saying that. It's like, can you do the same time and day the following week? It just makes it so much easier. But if I have to start moving hour forward, 3 hours, whatever, it's just too hard. So then, and I know everyone's probably listening going, you just use an app. It's like, yeah, but you have to figure out what time zone they're in. And then you have to figure out like if they're on daylight savings or not. And then it's just, it's not as simple as you think it is. So then, you know, and then what happened? And then he had to reschedule because he had an emergency appointment, like emergency doctor appointment. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. But then by the time we finally met, it was the most delightful conversation. But at the same time, I was like, I know why we haven't met sooner. He goes, why? I said, because I just interviewed this guest last week and you two need to meet. You know, I was like, I could see that. And if I hadn't, you know, if it wasn't that timing, then it wouldn't have been me being able to introduce him to this other person, you know. So this is where it all comes down to trusting it is meant to happen, how it's meant to happen, you know. And at the same time, I do get frustrated about when you show up to things and there's no ownership of it too. Like when they don't say, oh yeah, I stuffed up, my scheduling stuffed up, or
Right.
And then it's your fault. And it's like, but your appointment thing sent me the reminder. So it must be in your calendar because it's sending me the reminder, you know. So yeah.
That's the thing that'll get me too. Like whenever I try not to care too much about stuff because I can really care, you know, like when they no show or whatever. But if you have to move it, don't then think it's going to be my responsibility to be very quick with this communication and rescheduling and like if you change our appointment, you're now going to the back of the priority list. Like that's, you know, unless, especially if it was last minute, and especially if I had to wake up earlier than I wanted to. Like that is the quick way for me to be like, here's the Calendly link. I'm booked for 4 months. So I guess I'll see you in 4 months. Like, you know, but somebody the other day on Podmatch was like, I'm so sorry. I got the time zones wrong, blah, blah, blah. Like they were so apologetic that I was like, that's fine. That shit happens. I understand. But like, and I don't even need you to be that apologetic. Like it was over the top, but care a little bit that you've inconvenienced me. But that is one thing that immediately I got really good. Like when cancellations would happen with a couple weeks in a row, all my clients canceled, so many podcast guests canceled. And I just like am so okay with being like, oh, I needed that space. Okay, thank you. It sucks. It's stressful because now I don't know where the money's going to come from, but like I needed it. So thank you, you know? So before we wrap up, is there any like final words, anything, piece of advice, anything that you want to say?
I guess it's learning how to trust your intuition and follow your own discernment because, you know, even this conversation, some people will be like, oh my gosh, it's so out there. And then other people are like, oh yeah, that sounds like truth. And the more you learn to trust yourself, the more you learn to trust what comes through, that is where you're going to have really powerful transformations because no one knows your story. No one knows your situation. No one knows what feelings are happening inside you. The only person that knows is you. So the more you learn to trust your own discernment, and discernment is whether you say, this is right for me, it's not right for me, allow whatever needs to land, whatever needs to go, the more that you're going to be more powerful on your journey stepping forward and allowing that, you know, magic to happen. Because when you trust that more, and use that discernment, then that is where the amazing things start to come together. And I actually wrote about this in every part of my book because when I was writing it, each kind of pillar or guideline to the spiritual ethics, if you will, had a person, not a person, like a guide, if you will. So sometimes it's an angel, sometimes it's a god or a goddess, sometimes it might be an ascended master, whoever it might be. But if you feel like that doesn't align for you, then it's like, use your own person. Do what aligns for you. If you don't feel that, using what is it, obsidian helps you with your base chakra. Use whatever aligns for you. And it always comes back to using your own discernment, because the more you make anything yours, the better it is. So that even with my energy work, like when you were asking if it drains me, when I originally was using someone else's tools, yes, it did, because I was using their practice.
Yeah.
But then when I started to learn how to create it for myself and hold that container in a way that was more resonant with my energy, it didn't feel as draining. In fact, it felt more charging, and I would actually be charged up after it, or I would just stay the same energy, because it was just purely holding space. And when you get to that point of mastering your craft that you just like, no, I'm just going to hold space and I know I can do it. It doesn't mean that you don't keep adjusting and learning, but you know that you've got the skills and the doubt's not there anymore. Then that's when you know that, okay, I've mastered this now, and how can I keep leveling and evolving my soul? Yeah.
Right on. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you for being willing to wake up in the middle of the damn night to come on my show.
That's okay.
All right, I got to hop off. I have one that's waiting on me. I hope you get back
Good.
to sleep, sister.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Hey, make sure you've given the show a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to if you haven't already. And check out my website, empoweredwithmelissahepner.org, or my link tree on Instagram at melissa.hepner to check out my latest offers or workshops.
Emotionally unavailable.
All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
Emotionally unavailable.
INDEPE and cut.
Hi, I'm Chris Gethard, and I'm very excited to tell you about Beautiful Anonymous, a podcast where I talk to random people on the phone. I tweet out a phone number, thousands of people try to call. I talk to one of them, they stay anonymous, I can't hang up, that's all the rules. I never know what's going to happen. We get serious ones. I've talked with meth dealers on their way to prison. I've talked to people who survived mass shootings. Crazy funny ones. I talked to a guy with a goose laugh, somebody who dresses up as a pirate on the weekends. I never know what's going to happen. It's a great show. Subscribe today, Beautiful Anonymous.